Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. It looks like we're starting a little late because people are already starting to post in the chat before we even go online. So, anyways, I'm here with
Hi.
I'm here with Bill. Hey, Bill.
Hey,
Um, so we've got kind of an eclectic mix today. We always like to talk about aviation, right? Oh, did you see we have Hop Flight coming on Thursday?
yeah,
Uh, So they're doing electric aviation. We're having the founder and his son. I met them at a conference
cool.
in California,
Well, this will be fun.
and yeah. So we're going to talk about their EV tolls, and I think their play is a little different. I think they may be. Well, I'm not going to say. We'll wait till we
Right.
get to it, and but they're in aviation, and I figured you'd really enjoy that, so we're going to get that. Let's see, September, the tax credits go away. The big billionaire bill just passed. Um, yeah,
Oh,
I
well.
don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at politics today, so that's not been on my radar yet today. But I've seen there's lots of stuff about Elon creating a third party and other stuff. Who knows
And,
what's gonna?
and 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 being deported back to South Africa.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that that that's kind of crazy. So let's start out talking about Joby Aviation. That was
Okay.
why I was mentioning. So, um, they just delivered their first flying taxi to the UAE, causing their stock to go up 12%. Now, I think I may have told you I had a meeting with somebody who's really heavy into Joby and Archer. Really feels these two companies have real teeth, and part of it is I get them mixed up. So one of them is like a third owned by Toyota. One of them is a third owned by Stellantis,
Oh, yeah, that's
and
a good question. I know that.
I get that mixed up.
Yeah, I think
Let,
Archer is
um,
Toyota.
yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
not sure. And Elon could probably buy the silly gold card. I don't know if it'd pay the 5 million bucks. Yeah,
Sure,
I think he'd
easy.
be all right. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk is a U.S. citizen now, anyways. But it just
Well, that may make no difference whatsoever because now they're talking about taking a look at all naturalized citizens. So
oh
who
really?
knows? Oh,
Oh
yeah.
well, I could be in trouble then since I'm from
makes,
Germany.
that makes two of us.
Both of us could be in trouble. Yeah. Who knows? Well, hopefully, I'll watch what I say on the show. Um, anyways, but Joby
I wonder if they'd sell me back the old family house. Huh.
in
Built
Germany.
built it built in the 1700s.
Oh man, you're gonna have to update the
I
wiring in that thing.
I could have inherited it, but because my mother inherited it and then she sold it to a cousin or something like that. But if she kept the house, I'd
Who
have
knows?
someplace to go.
Oh man. Um, but anyways, Joby stock is doing well as a result of them delivering their first flying taxi to UAE. Well, this pension fund manager was telling me he's heavy into Joby and Archer, and
Okay.
he really thinks they're a good buy. He, you know, eh, he's expecting them to 10 to 20x over the next, 10
Wow.
years or so.
Now, yeah. Now we're not authorized to give investment advice here, folks. We're just
No,
talking. So
yeah,
just
we're just talking. This is entertainment, right? Yeah.
right.
But I found that really interesting
Yeah.
because he really thinks that EV taxis are going to be, or EV toll taxis are really going to be a big thing. And we had the guy on from Denver who was taught that was he was on with Mike and I, and he was
Okay.
talking about how he expects to make the cost of flying from Denver to the ski resorts by EV toll similar what currently people are paying to take an Uber.
Wow. Of
And
course,
and now
what is
one of
that? What is that? A couple $100 to do that?
it's probably a couple $100 to
Yeah.
go that far or whatever, and do that kind of ride, but still,
Well,
um,
I keep proposing that we set up an air taxi service to take cruise ship passengers from St. John to St. Thomas and back and forth. Instead of an hour boat ride, you get a
Hmm.
15-minute e-taxi ride over to the island.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would. I think there's a lot of applications,
And, and
for
by
the idea.
I have 9 years of airline experience if you're looking to hire. These
You think that would
airplanes.
be fun? Yeah. Um, yeah, it's kind of like in the nuclear space. Everybody wants to focus on Canada, but there's opportunities in the Caribbean, and all the workers want to go work in the Caribbean. Nobody
Oh
wants to
yeah.
work in
Oh
Canada.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, the
Yeah.
Canadian probably economy is a little bit stabler than some of those Caribbean islands. I mean,
Oh, no question.
I just saw an article today that basically the Cuban grid has totally collapsed. There's no lights on down there.
Isn't that a shame? I,
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
terrible.
I don't know. It's hard to fathom that, the whole idea of communism, socialism is great. And until what was the expression, Margaret Thatcher? It's great until you run out of other people's money to spend, you know, and it's just a challenge. You look at
Yeah,
Venezuela.
but on the other hand, what's the difference between Elon Musk
Uh-huh.
having 55%
Hmm.
more wealth than 55% of all Americans? One guy.
Hmm.
A little imbalance there on the capitalism side, folks.
Yeah, but it's not like he has that in cash. He just
Well,
happens to have a few companies that people decided that because Elon runs them, they're worth that. If
we're
Elon didn't run them, they wouldn't have that value.
yeah, which is why I think the stock. I saw a report that the stock went down today because of Trump saying he's going to deport Elon. Ah,
It's wild what will make the stock market change around. But anyways, I just thought this was the good news um, about Joby. Let's for everybody's benefit. Let's just real quick.
yeah, let's get it
We'll
up
show a
there.
picture of a Joby aircraft. I mean, it's one pilot, four passengers.
And in not too much longer, no pilot and 5 passengers.
Well,
Although
and that.
I think that'll be a while because I'm not sure I want to step into a contraption like that. As much as I love flying, step into a
Mhm.
contraption like that and have nobody. What happens if something goes on? Who does a passenger panic and try to, I guess what you do is you put a panic button, right? On the
Yeah.
on the panel, panic, and maybe the thing goes into auto feather or whatever it is and lands
You know
where it
what?
is. So
One of my friends has a four-seater plane that if something really catastrophic goes wrong, it's got
has a
a whole
ballistic parachute.
has a
Yeah.
parachute for the whole damn plane.
Yeah. The Cirrus, you can order
That's what it is, a
Cirruses like
Cirrus.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'd really want to be in there. I'm sure it still hits the ground pretty damn hard with that, but
Well, yeah,
people would
well,
survive.
tip it, yeah, you'd have a much better chance surviving. So or you
Yeah.
can do like the old Cessna 172 pilot did in Santa Monica last week. Did you see that?
No, did he land on the
He
pier?
lost the engine. And so
Oh God.
and there's no, the Santa Monica's all hills and rolling. The only place he saw he could land was the golf course in Santa Monica. He literally landed. I mean, it was the best, pardon my French, the best damn piloting I've seen. Landed that sucker, went around the fairways and the sand traps and things, and brought the thing to a safe and complete stop. And nobody on the golf course was hurt, and nobody in the aircraft was hurt. Amazing bit of piloting. So no
I'm
ballistic parachute.
I assume a cart girl was out there quickly to bring drinks and cigars.
Well, that I don't know. I mean, I've been to the Santa Monica airport. I've never been to the Santa Monica golf course, so I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I'm trying to think of which one I was at a couple weeks ago. Was that one down in Newport Beach? And I don't know if there'd be a place you could have landed a plane on that golf course. Um, it was one of these ones out on the ocean that had beautiful views of the
Right.
ocean. But man, that course,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know the place you could have landed a plane. Maybe a Fiesler Storch, might have been
Yeah. There
able to.
you
That'd be
go.
about
There
it.
you go. That
Yeah,
would do it.
yeah,
Or Mike Patey's one of his airplanes would do it.
yeah. But
If you don't follow aviation experimental aircraft, you may not know Mike Patey, but us, what's the word I'm looking for? Cognoscenti. He is a, a god of building short takeoff and landing aircraft. It's amazing.
yeah. So
All right, moving on.
Joby's up 32% this year. It's got a market cap of 9 billion.
Good.
And a Saudi Arabian firm announced a 1 billion investment for 300 eVTOLs. The firm also participated in Joby's Series C funding round. Um, Let me see. They built one vertiport at Dubai International Airport with 3 additional locations slated for Palm, Jumeirah, I'm not sure, and Dubai's downtown and marina. Joby also announced an air taxi agreement with 3 Abu Dhabi government departments in 2024. So the previous announcements. Other expansion moves in the Middle East, was the 300 aircraft for Saudi Arabia. That's demand for air taxis has gained momentum in recent years. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. And
Well,
your favorite president that won't deport us, Donald Trump, signed an executive order earlier in June that included a pilot program for testing electric air taxis.
there you go. We've already our first official passenger carrying air taxi service was about what, 2 weeks ago, flying from East Hampton out on Long Island into
Mm-hmm.
JFK, and they said it costs the equivalent in energy used, right,
Mm-hmm.
of like $7 of electricity.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom that it could have been that little amount of
Yeah.
energy
Now, of course, as I
used.
wrote up on the website, that doesn't include cost of the pilot, cost of the maintenance, cost of
Right.
the insurance, cost of landing fees. That's just the electricity that you use. But that's pretty dang good because I think
Yeah.
the Bell Jet Range or something like that, which is equivalent kind of aircraft, you would probably, I think the article said you would spend $140 worth of jet fuel for it, as
How
opposed to
much?
$140 in jet fuel, as
Okay.
opposed to seven
Okay.
dollars in electricity.
Yeah. I've seen where somebody landed a aircraft on top of the Burj Al Arab, but they landed it on the tennis court. They had to take the net down, of course, but
Right.
they landed one on there and then took it back off of the tennis court
All
up on
the
the roof.
Some of the stuff these stole pilot. I have a friend of mine, by the way. He goes to stole competitions, and
Hmm.
that's the stuff that they can do because how short can you take off? Some of these new aircraft where they have the blown wing, where they've got the
Hmm.
multiple electric motors and props out on the wing, like
Hmm.
6 or 8 on each wing, whatever it is, and it blows air over. Those things can like roll forward about 75 feet or so, even less than that, and they're airborne. It's amazing.
Is it just the amount of horsepower they're able to put out, or
It's the amount.
what is the
Well,
concept?
the concept is a wing has to reach a certain speed to fly, right?
Hmm.
So typically that means you're going down the runway, and if you're in a jet airliner, it's 150, the rotation 150, 160 miles an hour. In a small prop plane, it's typically, depending on the model, typically around 60, 70 miles an hour you'll take off. A Piper Cub, it could be as low as, 40, 50 miles an hour. So you have to have that amount of air flowing over the wing to get it to lift. But if you have lift devices on the wing, in this case, big electric motors spinning propellers, you've got 50, 60 miles an hour of wind standing still because
Got it.
it's blowing over the wing, and that allows you to take off in a much shorter period of time. So there that tech, I think Whisk, I think that's a Boeing company is working on. There's a number of companies that are working on that. They're not VTOL because VTOL takes an awful lot of energy to get airborne. But if you can get just a short takeoff roll and let the typical lift factor lift you off, then you don't require as much energy to do that. So
Hmm.
that's why they're looking, Air Force and others are looking at that type of technology. All you need is a short 200-foot roll and you're airborne.
Yeah. So here's something interesting. This kind of interesting article you posted about. It said felt carsick in an EV.
Yeah,
Scientists say you're not imagining it, and they know why. Now, in terms of like Uber and Lyft passengers, a lot of them complain about their Tesla Model 3 rides. Now, if the driver, it's pretty easy for them to be a little aggressive and letting their foot off the pedal too fast, different things. The car can stop a little bit suddenly. And I think that's difficult for somebody who's in the back seat of a car. And whereas if somebody was using the full self-driving, the car doesn't make those kind of, the car stops a lot, drives smoother. And so I think it's a little bit of
uh,
what
uh,
they're dealing
unless
with.
unless you're with the Tesla program in Austin, where they've had a whole spate of phantom braking episodes. There was one influencer, pretty young blonde lady, sitting in the back seat, starting to talk about what greater ride is, and suddenly, wham, the car slam. She jerks forward and slams the stuff. Just apparently, there's a problem with phantom braking. So yeah,
It has to
that,
do with the settings because I've had people talk to me about their issues with that, where it had to do with the tolerances they set, how quickly they wanted the car to stop for
right.
certain things going on. That is a pretty short landing.
Yeah,
10
yeah.
feet, 5 inches. You'd think you need a tail hook for that one.
Yeah, that would is that it would I don't know. That's probably not Mike Page played, but yeah, yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. But anyways, I don't know if people are getting car sick in the passenger seat, but it's pretty easy to get car sick when you're in the back seat. I mean, even if you're going on a long road and if you got
Yeah.
hills, you're going up and down, that stuff happens. But there's certainly something different
Well,
with,
the article says basically it's that the person is used to driving in a gasoline powered car where there's a sort of a different acceleration cycle and a different deceleration cycle. And people that are prone to motion sickness, this could aggravate it for them because of those little difference. I have two electric cars. One has regen braking, which I use 99% of the time. And then I have one that doesn't. But then again, I've never had a problem experiencing, motion sickness. So I can't comment other than the fact that apparently some people have that, and maybe that's part of the reason is how you drive an electric car as opposed to how you typically drive or ride in a gasoline powered vehicle. It's not it's
yeah.
not it's not a property of electric versus gasoline, that paradigm.
Mhm.
It's more just how the vehicles apparently appear to be driven by that particular driver.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that was kind of what people said on various forums I read for, people who ride around on Uber or Lyft that they were, it was very specific driver. It wasn't every time they got in an electric car, but it was like certain
Was it just
drivers, it was
yeah?
way
Was it
more
just
noticeable.
yeah? Was it just the electric models, or was it just because not all Uber drivers,
It was really very specific to Model 3s. So it wasn't even all Teslas. It was really specific to the Model 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
Joel,
So,
don't drink hot coffee. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Um, yeah. Well, hopefully when you get your hot coffee, it comes with a warning label. The coffee may be
Right,
hot.
right. And just be advised that you may have to get out of your tuber in the middle of the street, in the
There you
middle of
go.
an intersection.
That
That was
is
a
a
that
really
was a,
weird one.
that was a really weird one. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you've got that issue, but like we said, it seems to be really specific drivers who are maybe using the regenerative braking in a certain way that passengers just aren't used to. I mean, if the passenger was looking forward, you figure a lot of passengers are looking at their phones, or
Mm,
well, let's just say they're all looking at their phones. Okay, let's
yeah.
just be real here. Uh, and that's probably a lot of it too. They weren't looking at their phones,
That
and and also the car taking off so fast.
yeah.
So there's just differences with that.
That reminds me of a Invesco TV commercial I just saw this morning, where these
Hmm.
two gladiators are fighting in the arena, and the one gladiator knocks the other one down, and then he looks up to Caesar. Should be thumbs up or thumbs down, right? And all these
Hmm.
people are in typical, first century BC or common era garb,
Hmm.
right? It's like you're back at the ancient Roman Colosseum. And then suddenly you see everybody pulls, Caesar's looking, okay, people, what do you want me to do? Right? He's looking around the crowd, and everybody pulls out their iPhones and starts texting whether he should save this guy's life or not, right?
Oh God.
So Caesar takes and makes his decision based on the feedback that he got on his, gladiator app.
Oh. On average, gas cars to electric cars, it's only 2 decibels quieter at 70 miles per hour in an EV. And I suppose a lot of that depends on the type of insulation in the car. I mean,
Yeah, it's insulation,
some
and
some gas cars are pretty quiet
oh yeah,
inside.
it's all you hear is road noise, tire noise. You don't hear, don't hear the. I mean, they've done a hell of a job, of
Mhm.
quieting cars. Uh, you still got junk coming out of the tailpipe of the things, but it's quieter. So it's being all blanked out by the highway road, the tire noise.
Mhm. I told you before, one of my friends has bought multiple Teslas, and he started out with a Model 3, then a Model Y, and a Model X, and he still has them all. Okay. And
Okay.
the X is the newest one. And he hasn't really driven it much because since he bought the damn thing, he's not been living in the United States. But the car's sitting over, in West Omaha. Um,
Well, if it were, living up to Elon's vision, right? He could be renting that car out and it could be a taxi, earning revenue for him while he's out of the country. Come on,
uh,
Elon.
oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts doing that soon. Anyways, but he was saying the difference in the quiet between the Model 3 that they got in like 18 or 19
Hmm.
and I think it's a 2023 Model X.
Okay.
He said it's like night and day.
Oh,
He said
really?
it's, yeah, he said the difference in the soundproofing, but the Model X is a more expensive,
Oh, yeah.
luxurious car as well, but it's it's much better insulated, and it's just a better. He said it's a night and day difference between the Model 3 and the Model X, and I would expect that. But like if you go buy a Lexus gas powered car, it's
As
really
opposed to a
quiet on the
Corolla?
interior.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to a Corolla, it's really a much quieter experience in the car.
Speaking of which, we just
Mhm.
booked a flight to go see our daughter for her birthday in Seattle. So
Mhm.
when the reservation came up and the thing, it always gives you, here are rental cars you can buy at this airport or rent at this airport.
Bye.
Do you know the two cheapest rentals were a Model Y and a Mach E were cheaper, get this, than a Corolla.
Wow.
cheaper than a Corolla on a daily basis.
Out of Seattle.
Out of Seattle, out of SeaTac. Yep.
Yeah, and then you add the $50 a day Seattle airport fee to the rental, and you're just like you want to cry because the car rental might be $15 a day, and the
The rest
Seattle
of it's,
tax.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God, it
yeah.
is nuts. I don't know if there's a more expensive airport in the United States for renting a car
Well,
than
fortunately, I don't need to rent a car because I have, daughter's got a nice car, lives there. So
yeah.
she either picks us up or she sends a Uber or a black car or something like that to get us here soon. In the not too
Mhm.
distant future, I'll be able to take their light rail system because it stops when it's done. It only stops like 4 miles from where she lives.
And then you can
So
walk, you can hoof it the rest of the way.
I could almost hoof it, or I can get pick up one of those little scooters, a kick
Or
scooter,
the
or
Lime
just
scooter, yeah,
just get a Lime scooter. Yeah,
yeah, I can just see that. Yeah. Well, and a lot of the
yeah,
best features of an EV are lost when you rent it. They do different things with issuing the keys. They do different, you have kind of a different experience because you got to set up your own, payment for charging. So
right.
there's a lot of things that are just different. And that's one of the beauties, like with a Tesla, is that when you get it, you get the car set up, you go, you charge. One of the reasons why we had somebody on here talking about why Tesla chargers are so much more reliable than the other brands. And it said that most of the issues you really have with chargers aren't the actual charger, it's the payment system.
It's the payment. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the payment system. And Tesla, up till now, has pretty much you either sign up direct.
Oh, hello, Dave. Come back. What happened? Run out of juice on his phone? He's working on it, folks. Just to let you know. I should, while we have the opportunity, before he comes back here, if you follow the EV World website, which I hope you do, evworld.com, you will find a feature on there where I update daily, literally scores of new stories related to the world of EVs. And that's put into a database called the RSS Stream. And as of this week, I have now personally, this is not done robotically, this is me. I have now put in more than 100,000 links to stories related to EVs into the RS Stream database. So just in case you wonder what this old guy does in his spare time when he's not taking naps in the middle of the afternoon, I'm putting 100,000 stories in a database for you to have access to. So there you go. Okay, he's back. Yay! What happened?
Well, I'm sort of back. Do you hear me okay?
Well, yeah, I do. It's kind of echoey.
Okay, give me a second.
Your phone died?
No, it's actually quite the opposite. I forgot to put my system in airplane mode.
Oh, okay.
So
you got a call.
Airplane mode.
Right.
Yeah, and the call knocked me off line there. Are you hearing me okay now? Is the echo still there?
Yeah, I do. It's still, it's not as good as your previous audio.
Give me a second.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it. Hang in there.
There we go. Should be better now. You hear me okay now?
It's the same, but that's okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Just a little different quality audio.
All right. Yep. Well, you just never know. We have our share of
technical problems.
Yeah. Trying to mess around with the quality of the cameras and different things. It causes different things. All right. Let's talk about
moving on.
We're going to talk about Tesla. So Tesla's Europe slump deepens as Denmark and Sweden. Now, Denmark and Sweden don't have very big populations, okay? But they had a 60% reduction in June. Tesla did.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of this, I don't know. I can't imagine that people in Europe would be upset with Elon, but you never know. You never know with anybody, right? But
well, they had anti-Elon protests over there.
oh, they did.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I wonder what they were protesting. Oh, maybe because they weren't getting their U.S. aid.
Probably that, yeah, and just generally, knocking, of course, supporting the current administration, who is obviously not lovers of things European, right? No problem with things Russian, and that's fine if that's, if you want to be a Russia House lover, that's your choice. But some of the things that, they've been, the administration officials have been saying about Europeans not making, and you and I being European, by the way, half
Yeah.
European, we got kind of a stake in the game in a way, but we don't. I don't speak German very well, and I don't know how your German is. Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
9.
Ich auch.
It's terrible. But I left Germany when I was 3. Okay, so.
Right. Oh, well, you were there longer than I was. I left when I was a little over 1 year old, so.
Yeah. So anyways, but this is interesting. Tesla registrations in Sweden fell 64.4% in June from a year earlier. But one of the things is, it used to be Tesla was the only game in town.
Oh, yeah.
And it was that way for a long time, unless you wanted a 100-mile battery car.
Yeah, and I think of late here, it's Volkswagen's been taking those two markets.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's Volkswagen has been replacing them. Although you got, the BYDs and the Neos and the Xpings, coming in there too. But I think it's Volkswagen has replaced them as the sales leader in those particular Nordic countries. Not Norway. Norway's still, still pretty good support for. The thing with Tesla, though, particularly in Sweden, is the unions in Sweden have had long-running opposition to Tesla because Tesla does not support labor unions. They don't have any unions, workers in their factories, and the Swedish unions have been boycotting and putting political pressure on the government, and I think that obviously has spread down through the general population. I mean, has something to do with giving them licensing to put up chargers and things of that nature. So they've had strong opposition in Sweden, not just because of Elon, but just because of the general, attitude towards labor that is not characteristic, found in Sweden.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how, certain things play out politically. Like what Joel's talking about here, government employees are forbidden to drive Tesla in China.
Doesn't surprise me. Well, then the part of that, I think, goes back to encouraging people to drive, things that are domestically produced, although technically Tesla that you buy in China are produced in China by Chinese workers. So,
right.
But I think the concern also has been about privacy, because where we're suspicious of Chinese cars collecting data on us, should they be brought into the country, the Chinese are also paranoid about, we know that Tesla collects lots of data about how people drive their cars. So I could see where the Chinese, with their desire to have tight control over everything and everybody, would say, we don't want government employees driving around in Teslas and Elon Musk eavesdropping.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, and all the data people are getting, TikTok's gathering.
Oh yeah, from us, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're getting lots of good stuff.
No, they aren't. They're not eavesdropping on Americans. No, TikTok would never do that.
Yeah, my favorite TikTok
I
people
don't use it. I don't use it.
raising
So,
raising a coyote. Their dog got to be friends with a coyote on their
oh,
farm, and
yeah.
so but the coyote comes over. They know the coyote wants to go inside in the air conditioning.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah,
Uh,
those are kind of fun videos. I don't do TikTok, but I do get YouTube and different things like that. They'll have those strange animal friends that people have, and there was the one of a little baby raccoon up under the porch of somebody's house trying to stay out. It'll just be draggled. The poor thing's been drenched, so it's standing there like this. Please, can I come in? Yeah.
yeah, I'm hoping I can catch a coyote pup here one day, and maybe I can domesticate it. But I
Well,
gotta
good
see.
luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't. I don't even
We
know where my
we
coyotes have their den. So
yeah we do have apparently at least a couple foxes with mange, so that
yeah.
they found. I saw next door somebody's captured a couple of them. So
Oh, the coyotes in my neighborhood look pretty healthy.
okay.
So, I can, they're they sit nice and pretty. They look like you want you to walk up and pet them. I mean, they seem pretty happy to live in my neighborhood. So
I wouldn't advise it. Maybe,
no,
like you
I
say,
know.
maybe a pup. You
Yeah.
weaned and yeah.
All right, let's move on to
Boy, we're
Lotus.
getting off the track here.
Yes, yes. Yeah, well, we're not talking about like city problems. We're talking about what goes on living in the great state of Nebraska, where the good
Right.
life, the good life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lotus 12-minute charging hybrid system could save the brand. Lotus is investing in a hybrid future, a step back from its previous plan to go all electric. Now we have more insights. So in 24, Lotus stepped back from its plan to become an EV only brand. They've now admitted that they're also starting to face demand for premium electric vehicles isn't as strong or consistent as initially hoped. Lotus is taking a more flexible approach and revisiting hybrid tech. It's interesting. It's hard. I think it's harder for the supercar or supercar-like manufacturers to have, a lot of that charm is that noise and the flames coming out of the exhaust and different things, and just things missing with EVs. The pollution coming out of that exhaust.
Well, I was thinking more of the dildo effect, right? That engine doing this while you're sitting there.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't get that with an electric.
No.
Interesting though. I suppose you could probably typically, because well, let's not go there. We won't go there. I'll just drop that subject now.
Wow. Lotus sales dropped 42% in the first quarter of 25. Okay. Down to just 1,274 cars globally.
Well, I think that's just general uncertainty. Where in the hell is the world going, with what's happening, in Ukraine, what's happening in Iran, and what's happening in the United States. And, I would be careful about wanting to spend on some, a Lotus car. I mean, that's not a necessity. That's a personal luxury, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way I view it.
I've never even had a thought of even trying to sit in one. I mean, they're so low to the ground. It just looks ridiculous to try to get in one.
Did I tell you the story about the BMW i8? I squeezed myself into a BMW i8, which is their hybrid electric supercar, right? With the swing up door and things like that. Damn if I could get out of the thing. It was hard getting out of that thing. So yeah, you've got to be young and spry to be able to even get in and get out of one of those cars.
Back in the 90s, I owned a security guard company, and we secured a number of new car dealerships. And one of them was a Mazda dealership. And one of my officers was a young Hispanic gentleman who was, about 5'7", 5'8", and almost 400 pounds. Okay. Yeah, he was way too overweight to be young.
Oh,
And
no kidding.
I don't even think he died of a heart attack at about 32 or 33.
Oh, yeah.
But that was about 10 years later. But at one time, he found an unlocked RX-7, decided he wanted to sit in it and close the door. He had to call over the radio for somebody to come get him out of the car.
Help get me out.
He couldn't. I feel bad, but his fat rolls covered up so much of the door that he couldn't get to the door handle.
Oh.
Yeah, it was sad.
Oh, that's a shame.
Sad.
Yeah.
But never stopped giving him a hard time over it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean, some of these cars, I mean, the Lotus is so low. I mean, you can picture that going back and forth underneath, a tractor trailer, right? Because it's so low.
Oh, yeah. So I'm assuming that this hybrid system is big, and they're talking about a battery and a 12-minute charge. This has to be some kind of a PHEV, right?
Yeah, so it's got 186-mile range on the EV battery.
Oh, well, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah, so that's a lot for an EV. But it also has a gas engine. So it has 186 miles of EV only range, a total range of 620 miles.
Okay.
And it's a true plug-in hybrid. It's not a range extender because the engine does power the wheels directly.
Yeah. So it's a series hybrid then.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Parallel hybrid. I think. Is that right? Anyway.
Let me see. The combustion engine won't be the familiar Toyota V6 or AMG 2-liter that's currently used in the Emira, although Lotus hasn't confirmed what will replace them. But they're going to make an electrified Emira. And the Emira was 5,000 of Lotus's 12,000 sales last year. I guess if Lotus can survive with 12,000 sales a year, then the guys we had on from Longbow, maybe they can survive in that space. When Joel's talking about Jaguar sales falling off a cliff, it's one of those things. It's like you got your legacy car makers who are making gas cars, they're making EVs. They haven't typically done well in the EV space. Then you have all these EV only brands that are coming in. And when you figure 25% of new car sales in the world are EVs,
right,
that's really taking away from your legacy brands.
Yeah. And their first foray, is that the word I'm looking for, into EVs wasn't a particularly exciting thing. It had sort of marginal range, so on. And of course that's part of the Jaguar Land Rover brand, which is actually owned by a Indian company. So
Tata.
Yeah. Was owned by Ford once.
Yep. Was it Ford?
Yep. Ford Motor Company bought them.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then you got the other elephant in the room that nobody's talking about, and that's the fact that if EVs are going to last longer than gas cars, you're going to end up having less car sales in general.
Right.
And it's probably going to dramatically reduce the price of used cars because there's going to be so much more of them. So because the fact that they're lasting longer, and so it means they're going to sit on the lots longer. So what's going to keep happening is cars are going to keep going down in price. And that's good for consumers.
And that's good for consumers, sure. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. It's funny. Owen was talking about like the rumble seats with the fake engine noise. And it was interesting. We had the guy on last week from e-auto release with the zero down 349 a month on a Dodge Charger EV. That's a
Yeah.
pretty, I thought that was a pretty cool deal. I've only seen one Charger EV running around Omaha so far.
And you know that they're recalling those
Well, you know, it is a
because
Stellantis.
apparently because of the engine noise. It's the wrong engine noise. Huh?
Okay. That was an
That's
interesting one.
yeah. Anyway, okay.
You know, I've always liked Dodge products. You know, if I've had it as a rental truck, I've had some cool, or rental vehicles. I've had some cool pickup trucks. I've had lots of cool cars, and I really enjoy those. But they're also the only car brand I've ever had have issues in a rental car. A V6 keyboard. I think that might be a typo. I'm not sure what they're using for the sound of V6. I don't know. You'd think they'd use something that sounds like a.
Well, I mean, I sat behind the thing on the ground at bumper level when it was running, and what they've done basically is they put speakers behind the rear bumper, and it sounded really authentic to me. But
Maybe it sounded
what
like
am
the
I?
wrong brand. Maybe they were making Lamborghini sounds or something.
Who knows? It's kind of like Harley Davidson's patented, right? Sound of a
Yeah.
Harley Davidson. So I don't know.
Wake up the neighborhood.
I like quiet. You know, I'm
Oh,
very happy with my silent electric cars running around.
yeah. You can sneak up on people. Um, let's see. Let's talk about Lucid.
Okay.
So this is one of the things where Lucid now, I think, you know, it's one of those companies that I think is going to succeed. They're growing and now have the Gravity out. The Gravity is a competitor to the Model Y.
Right.
But the Lucid Air is one of the most efficient EVs out there in terms of miles per kilowatt. It gets about 5 miles per kilowatt hour on the battery.
Which is what I get with my Bolt, by the way.
Yes, but that has to do with your driving. You know, you're not driving on the freeway much.
No.
So you're driving in the slower spaces, you know, so
average speed around of the metro area that I drive is comes out to be surprisingly 24 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the average. So
let's see. What they're trying to do with the Lucid Air is they're trying to reduce the weight of the batteries and at the same time make them, you know, their electric engines or electric motors more better performing. And they said that their Lucid Air has, 520 miles on a 118 kilowatt hour battery. That's
really
not
good.
Yeah, that's a lot of miles, but that's still, it's a little more than 4. It's probably like 4.3 miles per kilowatt, but that's got the heavier battery. If you cut that battery weight down to a much smaller battery, I'm sure it achieves far greater efficiency. And that's, you know, we've talked before. It's like people think they need 1,000-mile battery, but they don't.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
your bladder won't last that long unless unless you've got something to pee into as you're driving along.
Lucid is planning to release a compact EV about the size of a Volkswagen Golf for 2027. Now, one of the things is they keep focusing on sedans or coupes, and the truth is, people, you know, seem to be more about wanting SUVs, and so it seems to make more sense. People seem to like sitting up a little bit higher.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the 20
I,
miles per hour, you were certainly not going to get around very fast, but you're going to be
no,
very efficient with the
let's
motor.
let's be clear here, Joel. There are motorways in Britain. They're called the M1, the M5, the M6, and so on. And you can travel at high speeds on those. The 20 mile per hour zones within London itself, they have an area that to try to keep the traffic down. And within, because look, London and Britain grew up from horses, right?
Mhm.
That's how people got around. In fact, there's the old story that the reason why trains are like 8 feet across and we have sort of an 8 foot window is because that's the size of a Roman chariot, right? And that's where these things. Anyway, so no, yeah, there are 20 mile per hour zones, but if you want to drive from London to Edinburgh or north to John O'Groat or whatever, you can do that at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. So no, that's only limited areas. And size of great, I don't know. I mean, I've been the farthest north I've been is Glasgow and Edinburgh. I haven't been up to the Highlands, but yeah, you can, they have good highways and high speed roads just like we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I just find it fascinating that Lucid is really, focused on this efficiency of motoring. And obviously, but, they're still, well, they were a premium brand. They're trying now all of a sudden to also compete in the affordability space. I think it's tough to try when I see companies trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
That Lucid Air, like we're talking about Lotus. Well, Lucid's actually done better than Lotus. They're selling more, they're selling as many cars as Lotus is on that high end space. Now they're trying to get into a different price tier. I'm not sure where that's going to go. It doesn't seem like good governance to me, but I think they went into the space wrong. They should have started out with an electric SUV and not the Air.
Sedan. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that.
Well, they were sort of modeling after the Model S, right? I mean, that was the approach that Tesla went. So.
Yeah, I get that. But the Model S did well despite the fact it wasn't an SUV because it was the first 300-mile range EV, really.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what I'm beginning to decide that we need to do here is we need to have a super chat function. So if you want to jump in here and comment, you got to pay us some super chat number.
I'm going to make
we
it.
might actually make some revenue at this.
We're going to make it Confederate nickels. Confederate nickels. We only accept Confederate nickels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it might actually have more value than 5 cents as a collector's
item. Hey, why don't we do crypto?
There we go. There we
go. Let's
that's kind of our next topic. That's actually our last topic for today.
Let's go there.
Okay. So Raoul Pal says Robinhood letting users trade OpenAI, SpaceX through blockchain is democratization of finance. End of public versus private markets has begun. I've seen things with like what is it? Bonds. So I've seen where you can do, because we've been talking about fractionalizing aircraft hangars, right?
Right.
Well, I've seen ideas in fractionalizing bonds, and I've seen a lot of ideas on basically using some type of blockchain token, and which is a form of crypto. For those of you who always wonder, people kind of stop saying crypto and people are trying to say blockchain more because blockchain doesn't
carry the same dent, right?
Yeah, crypto just sounds scammy now, so everybody says blockchain.
Yep.
But anyways, there's a number of companies out there and platforms I've seen for doing private offerings that are sort of in the public space. It's not exactly crowdfunding, there's other opportunities, just like we've seen
Right.
fractionalization of real estate. I've seen a lot
Right.
of things occur. I didn't know it was possible though to buy part of SpaceX through blockchain. If that's the case, I would just imagine that would be selling like crazy because
I would think.
SpaceX is an incredibly valuable property, and it's owned by that crazy guy that all of a sudden is, everybody's not wanting to buy Tesla,
Well,
but
and the same thing is, interestingly, OpenAI, which is what owned by his nemesis.
yeah.
But of course, that when I shared that with you, because obviously it involves SpaceX and that involves Tesla and so on, and I got to thinking. I said, okay, what's the current? Because we live here in Omaha, and we just had the Oracle of Omaha, Mr. Buffett, step down officially at the end of the year and pass it on to Greg Abel, who's going to be his successor. And so I said, well, what's the current price of Berkshire Hathaway A and B shares? Well, B shares are around like 485, something like that, $500. A shares are 700, and I think it was $85,000. Okay, for an A share, which is nobody can, no common person, no normal investor can afford that. This is like, if you seriously, you're a publicly traded corporation or a hedge fund or whatever, then maybe you can own a few shares of that. But I got to thinking, well, heck, if you can do SpaceX and you can do OpenAI, why couldn't we do Berkshire at Class A? So I sat down with ChatGPT today. I says, could we do this? And what would we have to do this? And could you write me a white paper? Bam! In seconds, it nice. Generated a white paper on how we could fractionalize Berkshire Hathaway Class A shares and make those available, through this kind of a blockchain thing. So I ran the paper by Dave, and we'll talk offline if you want to talk otherwise. But I asked it, okay, look, how do I get this idea in front of Berkshire, right? It's an off-the-wall crazy idea. And, I found, of course, Greg is not on LinkedIn, so I can't just send a LinkedIn thing to him. I said, well, so how would I get it to him? So just send a letter. So I said, generate a letter for me. And again, seconds, it generates a letter for me, introductory letter. So after we're done with this, I'm going to print that sucker up, and I'm going to send it to Greg and just see what happens. I think it's a good idea, but who knows?
Oh yeah, you never know. Yeah,
you never know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah, the only thing is you only get 4 tickets for that one share of stock to the event, so you'd have to figure out how to value those 4 tickets for the shareholders, right?
Well, hey, while we're speaking of it, get it out here. There's your pass.
Oh, there's my press pass.
That you didn't give. No, that's a shareholder, man. Nice. That's a shareholder pass.
Okay, nice.
So I have pull. No, I don't.
There you go. There you go. Well, yeah, sorry I didn't make it, but who knows? It's interesting, the democratization of certain assets certainly makes things interesting.
Well, if you had a chance to own some Class A, and this, by the way, this white paper, I said, well, Berkshire doesn't pay dividends, right? They just take the money and they roll it in and make more investments. And he's got what, $38 billion cash pool on hand?
I think it's way bigger than that.
Well, it could be.
I think it's over 100 billion.
So anyway, so he's got a lot. So they're not, the last time they paid dividends was 1967. So they haven't paid, they take the money and they roll it over. So what's the point if you don't get dividends? Well, you probably there is room for growth in the stock. At least that's what the AI told me. Chat GPT said, well, there's still room, but it's a good, safe investment for all of these reasons, right? So I thought, so it proposed, it said, well, let's fractionalize this so that you can buy a token that is 1/1,000,000th of a share of Berkshire Hathaway Class A, right? Which is basically you can buy a token for 70 cents or 78 cents, whatever it is, right? Hey, if you had a chance to buy a token for less than $1, wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Yeah, as of May 12th, they were sitting on $347 billion.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy to have that much cash. To think that they started it out off of green stamps. And
with what?
Green stamps. You know how you used to get your rewards.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember it well. I remember well. My parents used to shop at Safeway, and you always get green stamps when you would,
so
shop.
Warren and Charlie figured out basically how to arbitrage off of the green stamps. So when the grocery stores would pay a certain amount for you to be able to get the green stamps, and you'd use the green stamps, but you wouldn't redeem them sometimes for years.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And so what happened was they built up this pile of cash that they then used to acquire other businesses.
Right.
And that was the initial way.
A cloth manufacturer called Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a fabric mill.
Real quick.
If memory serves,
Geico. I don't know which railroads they own.
They own Burlington Northern, I think. Yeah, I think
of course
it's
they own
BNSF.
They own Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Yep.
There's a crap ton of Coca-Cola,
if you go
Dairy
Queen, Justin's Boots. They've got the aviation safety.
Don't
company.
they? Oh yeah, Flight Safety.
They
own. Don't they own Seas Candy?
Seas Candy. In fact, interestingly, one of the biggest displays this year at the shareholder meeting was the Seas Candy. It was huge area.
Oh wow!
I was surprised. Normally it's Hanes, right? Because they own Hanes, so they've got Hanes underwear and socks and things you can buy. But this time it was Seas. Seas had a huge display area. And then Geico, of course, if you had questions regarding, your Geico insurance, they had at least a dozen representatives behind the counter you could talk to. So it's an experience. Then they own not a mobile home, but I guess it would be a mobile home.
Oh, I know it's
Champion Homes, I think. Champion Homes.
Yeah, and they own one of the other companies that's a big home builder, but I can't remember the name of it, that's making modular homes.
Right.
But that's a separate division that is trying to do stuff in that space. Yeah, they own so much. Bill, we've gone over an hour today. For a day we didn't have much in the way of news.
Sorry, folks. We just had fun chatting.
Yeah. Well, everybody, really appreciate everybody chatting with us, and thanks for watching today.
Thanks a lot.
I'll be back with Mike tomorrow, and we will be don't get me started on Freon. Oh my God. Back with Mike tomorrow, and then on Thursday we've got folks, the founders of Hop Flight, which is an electric aviation company, coming on with us. So anyways, that'll be exciting. Otherwise, folks, have a great day.